I just needed to. I just started the recording here. I should have started it when I started talking. But anyway, so the whole service will be recorded and posted on YouTube. So you can go and see it, or if it's up there, you can fast forward. If you just want to listen to the sermon, you can fast forward to the sermon. Uh, really glad that you are all here today, and so we're gonna begin. Margaret, would you do our opening prayer, please?
Dear God, thank you so much for this chance to get together by Zoom and to see each other's faces and hear each other's voices and come to get together so that we can share our love for you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, normally at this time we would have a spiritual reading or some song or something, but Fred is not here today, and I didn't know that he was not going to be here, so I didn't have any music prepared. Linda submitted some to me a while ago, but I'm not ready to put it up yet. So, but anyway, so without further ado, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our brother Steve Barker. Steve was born, baptized, and raised via St. Teresa's Elementary School in Aurora, Colorado. He had a fine upbringing by his excellent parents and siblings, enjoying Boy Scouts with his father and brother, along with wrestling uh, and passing Aurora Central High School finals. Then the trouble began. Steve stumbled and sometimes marched from entry jobs to self-employment in concrete work, carpentry, and roofing. He started a merchant benefit discount club and an invention venture, and eventually found shelter in the electromechanical field with patience and help obtained through a 12-step program he never graduated from. Still participates to this day. He moved from uh, hey Bill, Colorado to Aztec after marriage to Jenny Jones, and won't be chased out from his home of over 20 years. He has two grown children from a previous prior marriage, and is the proud grandpa to 12 to 13 grandchildren. He and Jenny discovered Fellowship of Spirit in 2001 and have regularly attended for about 16 of the years since. Fellowship of Spirit is his family of choice. Let's welcome Steve Barker. Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Ron. Um, um, I'm honored to be talking to as I call you, my family of choice, my spiritual family, and very pleased to be here. And I hope I have something to offer y'all. I'm going to start out by kind of trying to loosen my tongue a little bit with sort of a spiritual reading. This reading is from a book that Jenny and I listen to on Audible every morning, because it's a book called The Book of Awakening, and it's written by Mark Nepo. We've been listening to it for a number of years. It has 365 chapters to it, so there's one for every day of the week, and each one runs an average of 5 minutes or so. But it is written to be a meditative work, and it was kind of his response, Mark Nepo's response to his cancer being treated and eventually healed. So it has a lot of the insights he got through that. And the current one is yesterday's meditation, and it's titled The Pain of Becoming. For the flower, it is fully open at each step of its blossoming. We do ourselves a great disservice by judging where we are in comparison to some final destination. This is one of the pains of aspiring to become something. The stage of development we are in is always seen against the imagined landscape of what we are striving for. So where we are though closer all the time, is never quite enough. The simple rose at each moment of its slow blossoming is as open as it can be. The same is true of our lives. In each stage of our unfolding, we are as stretched as possible. For the human heart is quite slow to blossom and is only seen as lacking when compared to the imagined lover or father or mother we'd like to become. It helps to see ourselves as flowers. If a flower were to push itself to open faster, which it can't, it would tear. Yet we humans can and often do push ourselves. Often we tear in places no one can see. When we push ourselves to unfold faster or more deeply than is natural, we thwart ourselves. For nature takes time, and most of our problems will stem from impatience. Before my experience with cancer, I was sorely driven as an artist. I pushed myself greatly. I think the creative impulse was deep and irrepressible in me, and ultimately healthy. But it was my secret need to achieve some sort of greatness that made me press until something began to rip. It was the unending, relentless push to measure up, and quickly against some imagined form of myself that made the flower of my mind tear. I do not believe that people bring cancer on themselves, but I do believe that wherever we weaken ourselves, that is the part that will give way to illness first. It was not by accident that the cancer struck the creative side of my brain. Perhaps one of the hardest remedies to accept for our pain of becoming is that wherever we are in our path, no matter how flawed or incomplete, is a blossoming unto itself. However much we've done at the end of the day is more than enough. It is a dream becoming truth. And now he gives us a suggestion for a meditation. He says, for your meditation, close your eyes and meditate on a simple yellow rose that is budding. Breathe fully and do not wait for the rose to fully open to see its beauty. Rather, focus on the yellow petals about to open. See their beauty now. Breathe deeply and look upon yourself as such a rose. Do not wait for some imagined end to see your own beauty. Rather, inhale and appreciate the beauty of yourself about to open. I have this book, the Book of Awakening, in a PDF form. If anybody should desire to have it so that they can share and read in it, let me know and I'll email it to you. Okay, and that kind of leads into my talk because he's talking about the process in development, and that's what I'm going to talk about. I call it the spiritual serviceman, and I actually looked on the internet for the spiritual serviceman, and of course everything was aimed at the military, and this is not what this is all about. This is about me and my life of service, which I've never been in the military, but this has been kind of my substitute for that. In my introduction is reference to my becoming aware as St. Teresa's. When my Baptist raised father married mom, he agreed to raise us kids Catholic. He would even come Easter and Christmas, and of course, us kids' confirmation ceremony. My first spiritual service job was 6:15 a.m. Mass. I was an altar boy, and that was the starting rung for all the altar boys. You had to take that early Mass. And so my first job in spiritual service was pedaling my bicycle to 6:15 a.m. Mass, and I would arrive at 5:45 before the priest and get the Mass set up. And what was the most amazing thing was that I got myself out the door. Once I got myself out the door, it was kind of a practice to be by myself, riding in the dark, and pedaling my little legs off to get get the job done. And it was something where I felt really close to, at that time, God. And now it's divinity, it's everything, it's the universe. Sometimes only a few, but also up to 20 parishioners would show up for 6:15 Mass. And every now and then, one of the teachers would assign their whole class to show up, so we'd have 50 kids out there. I delighted in making Father Regan, who was quite fond of wine, and he would always gesture for more through his fingers. You washed your fingers over the chalice with water and wine. He would kind of push the water away and welcome the wine. And I introduced myself to substantial sips of the fortified sherry myself before the service to kind of help calm me. And I felt a little more spiritual. After putting in my time doing those early masses and graduating through the altar boy experience, I eventually graduated to funerals and weddings, and sometimes we'd even make money at it. So there, the job actually had a reward to it besides the spiritual aspect. But the most spiritual part of my early life was pedaling that little bicycle in the dark to that goal. I went through school daydreaming. I thought it was somehow holy, even though I felt guilty. I could connect with some teachers. There was Sister Mary Edwards. She was the first grade teacher, and her job was to teach us all how to read. And during my time in her class, I felt rather capable, because reading was not a hard thing for me to learn. However, I got to second grade, and we had a lay teacher named Mrs. Watson. And for some reason, she inspired me to underachieve. I would never get my assignments done in time in her class. And so she would make me stay after and complete the course and clean her blackboards and her erasers. I think she kind of liked the extra attention. And that happened after school most every evening. So I taught myself that spiritual service could be initiated via disobedience, as long as the penance was performed. Definitely a Catholic way of looking at things. Later in elementary, I had varying degrees of measured success and some enjoyment, interspersed with shame and guilt to spur more effort. The carrot and the stick. My parents were active in our education, so major guilt was felt when I underperformed and would turn in a poor report card. Dad worked hard to be a sensitive father, even going so far as to sending himself to the child counselor, the psychiatrist, instead of sending me, so that he could learn how to help me out without stigmatizing me. I'll always be grateful to that man for his insight. Throughout my child and teenhood, I was inspired by my grandfather, Skeets Barker, who was, among other things, an inventor. He was also a flyboy, an airplane mechanic, a barnstormer. During the war effort, his inventions were purchased from him for $1 each by the U.S. Army. One of them was a pocket oil separator, which would separate a barrel of oil in a matter of an hour or so. He also invented the PCV valve, which was the first anti-pollution device ever put on vehicles. And he did it because every time he would open the cowl of the airplane, there would be all this grease in there from the air breather on the crankcase. And he thought, well, if I just took and put a one-way valve from that air breather back into the manifold, then the engine would go ahead and burn that up, and he was right. So years later, it became the first device that was put on cars as an anti-pollution device. He did a lot of other improvements. He worked for Beechcraft and up to Learjet. The difference between my dad and Pa, their way of being watched. In other words, whenever I was around them, I was a curious kid. So I'd watch them and I'd say, "What are you doing?" Dad would say, "Be quiet and watch me and see." Pa would just move in between me and the work. He'd challenge me to try to see more. And every time I would move around to see from the other side, he would move over there. He taught me to learn by discipline. He is also the one I credit with teaching me to be what we call an autodidact, which is a person who is self-taught, which is the essence of the inventor. And it's not to belittle my dad's way. He was disciplined in habits, where my grandfather was disciplined in methods. And while he didn't practice what he was schooled for because he couldn't get a job, he became a carpenter, and he became one of the best carpenters in Denver. Testing had put me into the smart class, but by the 7th grade, I had demoted myself into the dumb class by continuous pranks that got me in trouble. I just couldn't keep my mind on the work, and besides, school was actually too easy. It was easy to pass. But still, during my tenure or sentence at St. Teresa's, I would either have A's and B's or D's and F's. I graduated to public schools into the last class, the 9th grade of junior high. So I was in that school for only 1 year and didn't really get my feet wet. But then I was dumped into the high school. And public high school was more co-ed than the parochial school was. And girls played games on guys, and high school was very embarrassing for me. By the time I became a senior, I minded my P's and Q's, but it wasn't a great performer because it was such a culture shock for me. But by the time I became a senior, on the 69th day of the year of 1969 was Senior Ditch Day. And of course I went out with everybody else and ditched, but I couldn't bring a note back to the head of attendance because my mother was the head of attendance. And so I suffered the consequences. I was the only kid in the school that was cited for ditching that day. Spiritual service started to elude me, and I was more into survival. When we get into survival, sometimes I forget about any of the higher motivations. Then I got a girlfriend, and I got introduced to partying, and that further got me away from anything to do with spiritual or religion. I was accepted into the University of Colorado, but I blew my admission money on drugs and alcohol and spent the summer in Boulder, Colorado, just kind of milling around and sleeping in my girlfriend's dorm. But the only spirit that I would experience at those particular times was intoxication. My childhood wonder at the spiritual service moments were now shunned along with my religion as I progressed into adult work. I learned a trade and then wandered into the territory of thinking simplistically that I could do this for a living on my own. So was the story of my life. After 2 years of doing concrete work, I was co-owner of the company and we had 12 employees. We completed our work but went broke. Later, I taught myself carpentry, mainly because I had watched my dad for all those years, and construction. But 4 years later, the competition had caused me to question if I was really fit to be in that kind of work. Eventually, I started a merchant discount club called the Western Slope Discount Club. And I got the process of that was signing up business owners, merchants in town to give my eventual members a discount on their product or service. And I spent the time getting 20 of the businesses in town signed up and the catalog printed, and was ready to start selling discount membership cards to the general public when Exxon decided to pull out of Parachute, Colorado. It was called Black Sunday, and it basically cut the population of that area down in half and killed that business venture. But there was a lot to learn there because it was kind of a spiritual experience just to change from one profession to another and try to imagine how I could be of service with it. So I kind of I was looking for something other than construction because I felt abused at construction. So I went to work for a locksmith friend, fixing vacuum cleaners. By 1986, I had taught myself motor, power tool, small appliance, and whatever major appliances they could bring to me. I taught myself how to repair them. I ended up running a service truck doing restaurant and residential repair, which is kind of where I'm at now. We had 2 kids, but the first marriage was going bad, and I dove into drinking and drugs. Still showing up for work at 7 a.m. every day. I tell you, sometimes it felt, I don't know if not felt spiritual to do that. It felt rather ethereal. So I got divorced, and then after 11 years of bouncing in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, I started my present period of sobriety. After 1.5 years sober, I met Jenny and eventually moved here and married her at the Aztec ruins. Boy, that was a spiritual experience. We got married in the Great Kiva, and we were, I think, the first and the last people to ever have done that. That's been 24 years ago. Since then, I have been running a business called One Source Service. I've had from 2 to 7 employees, but now I'm down to just me. And the last 2 years have been rather stark. I've had a hard time trying to keep people employed. I haven't been able to find the right motivated people. I'm praying that some person will jump out of the woodwork and come and be interested in what I have to offer. I have a half dedicated helper who doesn't want to learn anything, but he's there to help me do the heavy lifting. So I've kind of adapted to that, and I've just kind of gone into being my own self in this business. And then being on the verge of bankruptcy for the last 2 years, COVID-19 hit. And boy, that was kind of an amazing thing to me because what it did was all of the IRS and the TRD, the New Mexico, both kind of backed off because of the COVID thing. And they haven't contacted me yet, but I imagine it's going to not be too long. I've been I've attended Fellowship of Service for 16 of the last 20 years. And when I first showed up here at Fellowship, I knew I'd found home. I knew that I could learn to love you all and you could learn to love me too. My purpose in giving this talk comes from my desire to propose another way of working, a way that leaves people feeling fulfilled rather than empty, enriched rather than drained, affirmed rather than angry. We focus on growing spiritually during our daily work to live our personal greatness. Like so many others, I have a strong yearning to bring my wholeness of being into alignment with my work. The task of my efforts at my work has been a challenge for me to work spiritually, to keep an open guidance and an inner clarity as I struggle to find the right words to deal with my customers and helpers. The process of living in the moment with my work, being both task-oriented and spiritually aware, has provided me the experience of living what I was attempting to accomplish. When we understand that our life quest is to grow spiritually, we can live this quest through the myriad experiences that allow us to be more compassionate and loving anywhere and at any time we choose. This is the ultimate in living a spiritually great life. I invite you to enter your daily tasks from whatever point along your spiritual path you are. Words such as compassion, authenticity, awareness, or trust may be easy to accept as workplace language, whereas words such as forgiveness, mindfulness, atonement, or love may be harder for some people to use at work. I use this language sometimes internally. It helps me understand the universality of the concepts presented. It is important that people understand the distinction I make between spirituality and religion. I hope to reclaim some of the traditionally religious words as universal human characteristics so they can be used at work and in my daily efforts. You are invited to explore, to question, to experiment with these ideas in the hope that you will be able to experience your wholeness of being and connectedness with others as well as the divine spirit in what can be considered your work. Then you are ready to grow towards your greatness. I hope that I have encouraged you to find more ways to work spiritual. I found a few guidelines that I wrote down this morning, helpful for working or at least attempting to work spiritually. I don't claim to be a saint. It's a matter of progress with me. Some days I make progress forward. Some days I go the other direction. But the points are, first of all, put more energy into questioning and listening rather than knowing. Understand needs and desires and the difference between the two. Sometimes people's needs are much more powerful than their desires, and other times it's the other way around. It just depends on their level of existence. Help others to understand my capabilities, in other words, what I can do to help them. So I look to positively affect the whole situation. These are my spiritual tools. I try not to make radical remedies. I create harmonious incremental improvements. And also to have no expectations as to the outcome. Work can be an act of discovery. And I find that when I go into my work, and my work is particularly well suited for discovery since I have to diagnose and whatnot, it opens up my desire to look for these clues and be the detective. It helps to adjust to changing situations. I must learn to trust and use my intuition. It's been a job for me forever, but I am much more reliant on my intuition and the other spiritual tools in my spiritual toolbox. And I must keep those spiritual tools in good order. Some of those tools some of them are born on the physical plane, such as intellect, emotions, passions, and then some of them are in the higher plane, creativity, awareness, insight, and some of them are in between, like understanding and discernment and other reasoning powers. Use them all in the service of the higher good. Realize that I cannot always know what that service is, what the higher good is. So I humbly practice acceptance of the situation. I pause and ask for spiritual discernment, and I accept and accommodate others' feedback. These are not things that have come naturally to me. They are things that I have had to cultivate. I know that the divine is in us all and collaborate with that universal energy. And my last tool is patience, 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 especially with myself. And with that, I hope I have imparted some good news to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. We appreciate you coming and sharing with us basically your life story and your philosophy, and learning that to be of service to others is the monumental good I think we learned that in the other organization that we've been associated with. I met Steve when he first came to town. About 20, I don't know how long it's going, but about 24 years, 25, something like that.
Yeah, 25 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've known each other a long time, and I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate your service to and your whole demeanor of your service to others. And I also try to emulate that. So it's you're a good man, and we love you, and we thank you for coming today to be part of our service. Matter of fact, you're our whole service.
That gives us some insight into the person that Steve has become, and I'm thankful for that, because sometimes we don't know enough about somebody, even though we've known them for a long time. And so it's thank you for sharing this with us. Now we kind of have a better idea of how you got to be where you are. So thank you.
I learned stuff.
That's pretty interesting. Did you know you got married in the Great Kiva?
You bet.
I bet that was special.
Yeah, it really was. We had Ginny's entire third grade class standing in the little cupolas that are around the perimeter of the thing with banners on sticks. And it was, the breeze was lightly blowing through and the sunlight was filtering through. And it was just, it's one of the most intense experiences of my life. It's also the day I quit smoking. So.
I remember it. I was there. I remember your wedding because I was there too. It was very special.
That was, yeah, it really was.
Hey,
Thank you.
Steve, can I get a copy? Will you send me your PDF?
Sure, I would love to.
I loved your
love
scenario.
Yeah, and he
How
has
we
got,
bloom and push it.
yeah, he's a poet, and so he has a lot of alliterations like that, and they're refreshing. After listening to Mark Nepo for over 5 years, I will keep listening every day.
Well, thank you for sharing. That was awesome.
Yeah, really was.
How do you spell his last name? N-E-P-O?
Correct.
Okay.
You know, often at the beginning of a service, we were in our physical building. Reverend George would start the service by saying, "You are here today because you were meant to be here." And the first thing that popped into my head this morning was how everyone judges themselves not to be where they should be. And the thought came that how often I do that to myself. And your opening reading absolutely spoke to that for me. And I thank you for that.
You're very welcome, Christine. And
I don't know why I'm crying.
my blessings to you and your heartfelt. All of you people at Fellowship have helped to validate my life, and I am so grateful for that. Thank you all.
Angie, did you have something you wanted to say?
I would like to have a PDF of that.
We can't
Can you
hear
hear
you.
me? Hang on. I would like to have a PDF of that too.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
So just send me your email address.
Okay, I'll get it from Fred. Thanks.
Okay. Sure. And I'll go ahead and forward that.
All right. Well, Angie, Fred didn't make it today. Do you know, is he out of town?
No, he played last night. He had a gig last night. So he came home late. He's not even really dressed yet.
That's okay. That's all right.
Sorry, Ron. Ron, I'm sorry I didn't share that with you. I sent the notice to Christine that he would not be here today, but he will be here next Sunday.
Okay, good. Good. Yeah, we have some canned music that we could probably use instead of live music. We prefer Fred singing for us, but if I knew ahead of time, I could have gotten some canned music. But we'll just think about that in the future. So, does anyone else have anything they'd like to talk to Steve about, or just address the congregation in general?
I have a question. Are we anywhere closer? I noticed that the church down the street from my house is having service inside. There was only probably 10 cars there, but I was wondering if we're going to consider that option again, or if we're going to leave it the way it is. Are we going to vote on it? Are we going to discuss it at the board meeting?
We're going to discuss it at the board meeting. We'll discuss it at every board meeting that we have. What
Okay.
our possibilities of getting back in the church.
Okay.
That's our goal, is to get back in our physical building and still continue our Zoom presence.
Right. I didn't mean not to do Zoom. I just meant that we could be in the building.
No, well, there's several started under different conditions, and I don't know, the rules seem to change daily from the governor, so I don't know what's that, and we rely heavily on Jim's his expertise to advise us, and so he's not indicated to me he thought it was time to go back.
No, but we could certainly practice social distancing and masks and everything when we get in there. And, I just, I'm glad we're going to discuss it again. I kind of feel strongly that we need to get back in there, but we'll see.
Hey guys, while you're talking about that, what about the capacity of the church?
Can't hear you.
Running at 50%, then how many people can we have in there legally or airwise?
Well, we only have about 50% of the people that are showing up for this anyways, and most of the people, like Marion and a few others, have deemed that they probably would not come even if we did open up the building at this time. So probably there isn't more than 10 people that would want to come if we did open it up. So,
Okay. And what about like ventilation? Maybe opening the windows or something, just because of the whole not recycling the air. I mean, this is just some suggestions to make it safer for us.
Certainly is a good option, yes.
Yeah, I think we need to think about that. I mean, I'm all for it, but I also think that we need to do everything possible.
Angie, could you come to our board meeting next week after the service so that you could give your expertise to us and maybe make some suggestions along those lines, or at least tell us what's happening in the hospital?
I am camping next weekend at Medicine Lake, and I'm not sure that I have reception there. If I do, I will join you.
Okay.
Most likely. So yeah, if I have service, I will join you, but I've never been there, and my friend that I'm going with, she can't remember. Okay. So, but I will try.
Okay. Thank you. Very few pine trees are transmitting, I mean.
I know.
There's no towers. Okay.
Marion, it's good to see you.
Thank you.
Are you doing well?
I'm doing well, and I hope we can get back in our church again soon. We'll see.
Good. I hope so too.
Yeah.
She says she will be there, by the way.
All right. Well, we'll vote on it next week and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Ta-da.
Let's see what the numbers say. We want to do it safely, but we want to do it. That's the thing about it is. All right.
But just for the record, I've made more Sundays on Zoom than I did in the building.
That's true. You have. We've noticed.
You noticed? Sorry, guys. Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Well, I like the Zoom, but our building misses us. It's lonesome without us.
Yeah, that sure is.
I did notice today on that note, Presbyterian Church, they do their, today, they had a pianist, a flutist, and a singer all spread out. They were the only ones in the sanctuary. Everybody else zoomed in, but their music was live in the church.
All right.
That was, I don't know whether a speaker showed up. I quit watching, but anyway, slow and steady.
I understand
It's not like we're jammed together in there either, you know, where there's spaces with mass and
I understand the Mormons have resumed services that they have, like one Sunday they'll have people with last names starting A through N or something, and then the next Sunday they'll have the other part of the alphabet so that they're not overcrowding their facilities. I don't know what, there's other churches that have started back up. They use different methods. We don't have enough people to try to to do that. We don't do it. Today we have about 15 people in attendance. Okay, 12 people, and then you got 3 there with Lily and Mike, and but we could certainly in our facility, I think, probably social distance pretty well with that many.
And I like Angie's idea of opening up the windows.
Yeah, make it more like an outdoor. This time of year, it wouldn't be a problem.
No, it wouldn't.
Probably make it better. Yeah.
You guys, and there's little things like that, the things that they do at the hospital that we can do that just to make sure that we, like taking the temperature or using hand sanitizer before you come in the building, and then having it available. I mean, just little things like that really, they'll cut everything down more.
Yeah.
So
one of those thermometers that you just hold you and they take your temperature remotely. They cost about $70 on Amazon. We might want to invest in one of those. I don't know.
Or you can just like have you could everybody take their temperature that morning, because what I find is like the temperature really is not, I mean, when you have a temperature by that time you already feel like crap. So I mean, we could do the honor system and everybody check themselves, but I say even if you feel like having allergy symptoms, because one of my colleagues felt like she had allergies and she was positive. So maybe if you're feeling bad, just stay home that day.
Yeah. So when I went to my doctor's office and she took my temperature, it was high, and she said, "Well," she said, "you just came in from outside and you exerted yourself getting in." So she waited about 5 minutes and I was normal, but just coming from the heat, with those those handheld thermometers that can give you a false positive.
Yeah.
Well, it's all good. We still got Course in Miracles on Wednesday nights. We have our book study on Sunday morning. We're studying Dr. Joe Dispenza's Becoming Supernatural, and we're all enjoying it. It's all these books that we have read over the years, we've decided they all say the same things, because they're covering the same spiritual subjects, I think, just from different points of view with different styles, different formats, but they're all talking about our personal development is of utmost importance, and that we can do it in groups, and that's beneficial. But personal development is why we're here on this planet. Probably why we're all each one born into one body. And so that we're here so we can develop as a soul. Glad that Don and Neva was here. Angie, it was always good to see you. Margaret, thank you very much for the opening prayer. Linda, love you, hon. I'm glad you're here. And Jenny, our condolences for putting up with him for 24 years. You've done a good job. We should give you a medal, but we're not going to. But it's all good, and we're all family here at Fellowship. I think of all of us as more than just somebody I go to church with. That I have a special place in my heart for each and every. I think that we all feel that closeness, or else we wouldn't keep coming back. We don't.
That's right.
Because the building is beautiful. It is a nice building, but it's not the building that makes our fellowship. It's our connections and our relationships heart to heart is what makes our church, our fellowship, and that's the of supreme value to me, because I have been in a place in my life where I felt totally disconnected from everybody, and it is the loneliest place in the world to be. To have people that I care about and care about me is something that is more valuable than gold to me. Uh, does anyone like to give the closing prayer, the benediction? If not, I will. Anybody have anything else that they'd like to talk about? Mike, you're sticking your head in. No.
I was just getting closer so I could hear, but I'll do a benediction, of course, if you want.
That'd be great. That would be great.
Okay. It's from the Holy Encounter in the Course. It says, whenever you meet anyone, remember that it is a holy encounter. And as you see them, you will see yourself. And as you treat them, you will treat yourself. And as you think of them, so will you think of yourself. Never forget this, for in them you will either find yourself or lose yourself. That's it.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Very appropriate. We appreciate it. That will end our service today, unless someone has something else. I'll leave us open here for a little while, and people can talk to each other if they want to. A few minutes, and when people wander off, I'll close it down. So we'll see you next time.
Yeah,
Good.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
I'd like to speak up and thank Ron for all of the service he's been performing last few months.
Amen
You're
to
really
that.
holding us all together.
Well,
Thank
I really
you, Ron.
appreciate it.
well, it's been my pleasure. I'll tell you what, I've grown because of it. I know that I have. So it's good. A lot of things technically, and we're still going to do some more learning on that, because we want to expand the footprint, and go out and maintain, so we can have speakers like Mark or Susan come and talk to us, and be able to continue to share Zoom, even if we're back in the church, and that's important to me. So that's good.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron.
Everybody, remember.
Thank you, everybody.
Steve, I need to visit with you for a minute. Steve.
Oh yeah, okay. I heard Eve, but I didn't.
No, are you, when you're going to be in town and have a few minutes, did you let me know and we can run by a fellowship? The guy showed me how to hook those batteries up, but I had a question. I didn't want to go ask them because they normally charge for that sort of thing. It's just about how to connect up the red and black lines.
Okay, the red and black
so,
lines for what?
The power to the batteries.
Oh, okay.
Do you hook up one
Sure.
before the other?
I don't know which batteries you're talking about.
They're in the fire alarm system. It doesn't matter. That's why I'm saying if you're going to be in town.
No, I don't think it matters, but I'd be
Okay.
glad to help you. And on the other note, I've been trying to get together with the Friedrich people. I've made some good contacts, but for some reason they have not returned my call lately. So I'm going to resume bugging them again Monday, and we'll get you.
Well, I feel really badly because that thing is not old enough to have worn out, and I don't use it enough to wear it out. So
No, I have a feeling that I'm talking to the right people that should be able to, number one, help us and maybe give us a good deal on any parts that we need for it.
okay, all right. I leave it in your trustworthy hands.
We'll give it a try.
I'm still dealing with CenturyLink, trying to figure out if I'm going to drop them and change my email address. But in the meanwhile, for any of you that are listening, I cannot receive emails at my email address. You can text me. I can get those, but I'm not receiving emails. So when I make up my mind to do whatever I'm going to do, I will send out a blanket email to everybody.
I did get that email from Susan to transfer to you. I just never had time to I got to type it out in a text and send it to you. But I will do that. I'll try to do that this afternoon while
Well, or just wait. Wait. If you want to print it out, just bring it with you when you come pick up the computer.
yeah, I could print it out because it's in an email form.
Yeah, just do that and don't worry about trying to retype it. I would feel bad for you to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably at least a minute and a half to do that. So.
Yeah, well, it's up to you, however you want to do it. Just,
Okay.
I don't know how long my email is going to be down, and I don't know when I'm going to get fed up with it and tell them where they can put it and go somewhere else. I would actually have already moved to somewhere else if it wasn't so dang much trouble to share a new email address with everybody that you ever might have.
Yeah. Changing doctors or changing banks, it's a pain to try to do that.
It is. It's awful. I mean, you have to do all the banks. You have to do all your professional people. You have to do all of your credit cards. You have to do all the people. I mean, the people in my email address, I mean, that's easy. You just send out a blanket email. But all the rest of them that are not in there are the ones that worry me that I'll lose something along in the line. Well, it's like doing our fellowship's state of New Mexico Corporation Commission. If they don't have it, I don't get the information that I need for renewing it every year. So these are just things I have to remember who to send it to.
There are subscriptions that you have forgotten about that is associated with your email address.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, okay. All right. And I'll go pick that up Monday. So you let me know when you're going to be in town after Monday, and
yeah, I don't know.
I'll get with you.
I'm hoping to get there next week. I'll make it a point to get in there next weekend.
Okay. Just let me know when, and I'll be here.
Set up our Zoom on that computer and
Okay.
get all, so that I know how to do it, how to make sure that it works. And then I also want to have about 2 or 3 people who have that logon information so that in case I'm not available, our Zoom meetings can still progress.
Yeah.
Because I have to manually start it. And I have to do it a few minutes before the meeting starts. I try to do it like 15 minutes before the meeting is supposed to start. But if I'm not available, we can't have a Zoom, and that's not good.
No, it's not. But we'll figure it out. We'll do it. Okay. Thank you all, everybody. Love you. It's good to see you. We'll see some of you on Wednesday and some of you down the road.
Jim, have you heard from Renee? How's she doing? You said something about her quarantining.
They're thinking that her mother caught COVID-19 and that's why she passed away. Only it didn't display the usual pneumonia type symptoms, and they tested her 4 times and they all came back negative. But the other thing I read is that if the virus doesn't present itself in the the virus is mostly a circulatory system disease rather than a pneumonial lung pulmonary disease, which involves the lungs. It involves the lungs because it is in your circulatory system, and the lungs are part of your circulatory system. But it seemed to hit her in her digestive system first, and then the circulatory system. She kept getting blood clots, and her white blood cell count was going nuts, and her sodium levels couldn't be balanced. So and her caregiver, which would come in from time to time, and the last time she came in was like June 30th, she tested positive for COVID-19. So that's really suspicious to me that that's what she passed away from. And her sisters were there when she did pass away, so they were exposed if she truly did have it, and then that means she wasn't exposed as well. So she's going to go get a test today, but the other things I've been keeping a note of is that a lot of the testing is only about 70% accurate. You can have a false negative quite easily.
Wonderful.
So, and I have to check on, there's 2 types of tests. There's an antibody test, which is not all that accurate, but what it is, it measures the amount of antibodies in your bloodstream after you've had the disease and gotten over it. And that tells you if you have immunity. But before that, what they'll do is they'll do a nasal swab, and they'll try to pick up the RNA. It's an RNA virus, they'll try to pick up traces of the RNA, ribonucleic acid, in your nasal passageways, and then try to detect that. But if they didn't pick up enough, or it was mishandled, or there's a lot of factors where you could have a test invalidated. So that's probably why she had 4 tests and they all came back negative.
Hmm.
But she's thinking that's what happened, but she's almost at the end of the 2 weeks. So if she isn't coming down with symptoms, then she may have dodged that bullet again.
Mhm.
She was possibly exposed at work before she quit and retired from work too, as well. So it's been interesting.
Are you still working?
I am. I'm telecommuting though. I
Oh, are
don't
you?
go into the office, and in fact, I'm probably going to propose to my supervisors, yeah, I can go out and do what's called sanitary surveys on water systems, but that's all out in the open, and we can social distance. And if we have
Yeah.
PPE, such as an N95 mask, that would be reasonably safe to do that. The biggest danger would be going back into the office, where you're in a confined space with other people. You have outside customers coming in, and you have a recirculation system, an air conditioning system, and that's recirculating air. I've been keeping kind of an eye on some of the research that's been coming out. One of the things they're coming up with is that there's a possibility that COVID-19 is transmitted by the aerosol route. Now, there's a difference between the water droplet route and the aerosol route. The water droplet route, the research is that most of the water droplets that are expelled from your mouth usually fall to the ground within a 6-foot circumference around you. That's where the 6-foot social distancing rule came from. But if it is passed by the aerosol route, then you're talking 25, 30 feet, where you could be transmitting virus into the air from that far a distance. So there wouldn't be a safe social distancing.
Away from it, then, is there?
Pretty hard to. If it's in the aerosol route, masks won't do you any good, because the masks are designed to capture water droplets. And they're assuming that that's what the vast majority of the viral load is in your water droplets being expelled from your mouth. And that blocks that.
I have to go. The baby's mother's here. Yes, love you all. Thank you, Jim, for
Okay.
sharing this. We'll see you next week.
All right.
It's aerosol.
Bye, Jerry.
Do the masks actually trap the COVID in it? Because if it's aerosol rather than water droplets, are the masks making the problem worse, or do you think it's affecting it at all? What
It's not affecting it at all. What's happening is if it's aerosol, you basically have a viral particle that's being expelled from your mouth, and that's just going to go through any mask. It'll go through an N95 mask, because viral particles are so small compared to bacteria that you need an electron microscope to see a virus, most viruses.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a concern. I've been keeping an eye on that to see what they're coming up with, because this is a new virus. We're still learning things about it every day. So
San Juan County still a hot spot?
I haven't checked recently, but what I understand that it's mostly the Navajo Nation that's getting hit really hard. At least that's my old information. I'll check again. The Department of Health website. You can go to that website and they'll give you an update county by county. But we're one of the higher counties last I checked.
It's
Yeah.
Peter now.
Yeah, it's kind of like masks. In the beginning of this thing, nobody ever had a mask. There weren't any masks available. There weren't any manufacturers, and also the information was slow to get to us.
You want me right now?
But now we're almost inundated with
It's almost over.
mass advertisements and people trying to sell us masks, and also the same thing with the information. I almost get too much information, more than I want to wade through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot of misinformation out there too. You got to be careful about, who to believe or what to believe.
Yeah.
But at this point, from what I see, masks do help, especially if both parties wear masks. You're wearing a mask to prevent your water droplets from being expelled, or at least greatly minimize that. And the other person wearing the mask, it's maybe only 20% effective. at keeping out water droplets, but your mask is like 65% effective at keeping water droplets. So if you combine the two and then you provide some distance between you and you're not in a confined space, the likelihood of COVID-19 getting that is very, very low.
Being in small rooms gathered together is the worst possible scenario, and it's got creates a petri dish for the COVIDs to be passed back and forth. Is the worst thing to do. Any distance or mask and all that stuff all helps, but you could mask up and glove up and gather up 30 people in a room, and you're all that stuff is almost nil, not effective. Is that right?
Well, even medical professionals, because they're in close and intimate contact with their patients, even though they put on PPE, it's, you know, all you have to do is drop your guard just a little bit, and then you've got it. And that's happened. Yeah. Especially if you have to reuse your personal protective equipment. And a lot of medical professionals do have to reuse it because of shortages. And that's not a good situation.
No. I tend to believe that everything turns out the way that it is supposed to. And this is a good reminder for me that man is not outside of nature. Man is part of nature. And so if there's a virus and it's some kind of way, we don't have to understand it, but for me, I have to accept that's the way it is. If that's the way that it's happening right now, that's the way it's supposed to be. There's not much we can do, all that we can do, but we got to realize that we are part of nature, and that we, you know, and if it gets us, it gets us. All we can do is try to do the best we can to not spread it to other people. And if we get it, we get it. But if the main thing is, I don't want to contribute to anybody's struggles on this planet, because that guilt and those things are the worst things that I always have to deal with. And I just try to I avoid guilt like I do alligators. I just don't want to get too close to them.
Yeah. Well, Mother Nature will not be denied. I mean, we try to ignore her, she'll slap us around.
Absolutely. She is very, very, very powerful and protects herself all the time. You know, there are things in nature that beyond our understanding that happen.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all I have.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jim. We appreciate your expertise, your advice from informed, educated source, and we really appreciate it. We count on it. I do. I count on your suggestions about what we should do. Is it safe? Is it not safe? And much more than some news person on the TV trying to tell me something. I don't know whether to believe them or not. I don't know if their words are really beneficial, or whether they're politically motivated or whatever. I just don't know. I don't trust most news outlets, but I do trust you.
Okay, thank you. Well, appreciate that.
All right. Well, I need to go. I got yard work to do. So,
yeah.
Hey, Margaret, it's good to see your smiling face, sweetie.
Hey, good to see you, all of you. Thank you, Steve. That was very interesting.
Well, thank you, Margaret. Thank you. Thank you all for the opportunity.
Your early Catholic upbringing sounds a lot like mine. Went through a similar experience. I didn't do the altar boy thing, though. I kind of wanted to, but I didn't.
Marion, good to see you, hon.
You're looking. Okay. Yes. See you soon.
Good.
Bye, Marion.
See you next time.
Okay, bye-bye. Steve, hang on a minute.
Sure.
Would you like to go to that meeting I told you about? That's
this afternoon?
Yeah, we have a potluck associated with it, and today is the first day we're going to have it before the meeting rather than after. So I'll be leaving around 4:30. The meeting starts at 6, and it's over at 7. And we'll be coming for that.
And it's at the state line in somebody's building or something like that, or outdoors?
There is one of the AAs out of Durango. His name is Robert something. I don't know what his last name is. Good guy. He's developing a resort up there. Okay, a place. He's got campers parked out. It's a pretty good sized piece of property, and it borders the river. and he has built a pavilion that's covered, and it's got a concrete floor, and it's got lighting and fans, and he has finished the thing over the summer. So it was real rough whenever we first started going in there. Now it's stuccoed walls and everything's painted and everything's good. And they have dances. It's a I don't know what the size of it is, but it's a pretty big thing. It's all open with a roof, and it's against a slope to the west, so there's no wind. And that's where the wall. There's one wall, and then three sides are open. And the three sides that are open faces the river. We're just up above the river, and there's a pond there. We see animals, and the river's flowing by. It is really peaceful and really nice, and the people are just good. And we sit around in a big circle, and it's probably as safe as any other place. Nobody wears masks though, but you could either social, at the end you can either hold hands or not. Nobody cares. So if you'd like to go meet some new people and take in an AA meeting, you're welcome. If you don't, there's no pressure.
No, I like the idea. Let me coordinate with Jenny. She's taken out of town tomorrow, so I want to make sure to help her.
Sure.
But let me get back to you, okay? 4:30, huh?
Good. And I plan to go there. He plans to continue to have these meetings up until it's too cold to be outside. So
I see. Okay, that's cool.
So if you don't go this week, you're always welcome to go. I'm going to be going most of the time. So
Okay.
Kathleen from the meeting is going to ride with me. I was going with Dell and David Wright, but David's been having some problems, and he didn't really want to go. I don't know if they're going to go today or not, but anyway, hopefully they will. But they were coming in and getting me, and then going back out there, and it's not necessary because they allow me to park real close to where we're, to the thing I pull right up to the pavilion, and they were wanting to. We thought in the beginning that we had to let us off and then park up in the parking lot and then walk down, and so they're letting me park there now, so it's not necessary they come and get me. So, but anyway, you're welcome, and thank you for your talk, Bob. You did really good.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right.
So it would be at your house at 4:30 then, huh?
Well, that I could come by and pick you up, whatever you want to do.
Okay. Let me get back to you, okay?
That sounds good. Sounds good. Oh, you know what? I've been recording this whole damn thing. I should have stopped.
Really?
Yeah, I'm recording.
Is there any way